Hi everyone, I'm Chris Lim with Theotech and the Church Digital Transformation Project, and today I'm joined by my friend, Pastor Tyler Gorsline of the Seattle Church.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and kick off our conversation about digital neighbors, digital neighborhood, and maybe you can tell a little bit of a story of the Seattle Church and how you ended up in this beautiful space called The Collective, and what it's been look like to transition with the lockdown orders and the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an adventure like it's been for all of us. Being in a time where we've had so much uncertainty, it was amazing to, a year before, have moved into the Collective Seattle, which is a urban base camp for the heart, mind, and soul. Basically, it's a co-working space, a social club where our neighbors here come together for community service, for entrepreneurial business ideas and how they can connect with one another and build the things that they're passionate about. And so we moved in here as a church to meet on Sundays, and then had members, 25 of our leaders throughout the week, spending time in the space, caring for neighbors,
as actual co-workers.
As co-workers, yeah,
okay.
That's right. In this co-working space, spending their time, having meals, having coffee, climbing the rock wall, using the Peloton, doing that sort of thing. And so it's been amazing. However, this season of transition has been unique as we've moved to digital church in so many different ways.
Yeah, so you were so involved with the community and in the neighborhood physically in person. And so what was that digital transition look like for you?
Yeah, that's been unique for sure. I think the thing that we had to do immediately, our last Sunday gathering, we streamed it on Facebook, but then we didn't realize that really within a couple weeks we were gonna have to plant an online campus of a church. Our heartbeat was so much about relational, incarnational, neighborhood, parish presence. And I think the thing that we're discovering is that really who our neighbor is, to raise the question that Jesus raised to ourselves is not just people in this place that can either gather here or neighbors that we can serve, within proximity, but rather we've made the transition to being on Facebook and YouTube and utilizing social media in new ways, and finding that we have church with people across the world in ways that we did not anticipate. And we sometimes don't even know how they connect to us.
How they find you.
Yeah, we have no idea necessarily sometimes, but that's been part of our innovative moment for us.
So was that, what were some of the activities that you were doing to reach neighbors before, and what are the ones that you're doing now that you're online?
Yeah, so a lot of our neighborhood outreach efforts were, again, being in this space, getting to know people who are invested in it, serving our homeless neighbors, those who are currently houseless, seeking to reach out and just get to know the business owners in the community, serve in whatever ways that kind of the neighborhood had a need. But some of the things that have arisen in this time is that we have found that we can utilize things like Venmo to crowdsource caring for essential workers, basically saying, hey, what if we not only helped the collective with their bottom line because a lot of their members have left, but what if we utilize technology to together raise funds to then go help folks in our neighborhood who are serving COVID patients? What if we help to meet new needs like paying for furloughed employees here? And then, finally, what if we could tell stories differently online than we ever have before? Meaning instead of just saying, here's what A Seattle Church is doing, or here's a testimony, we're trying to tell stories that are really centered on how are you going through this moment? What is your COVID experience? What is it like for you? And people are giving testimonies on our newsletter and in other digital sources that are basically just explaining the normalcy of this abnormal time.
So was that your community that's responding and creating those videos, or actually even asking the broader public, like, hey, how are you exposed to COVID? And people are replying to you with an Instagram story, or what's that actually like?
Well, you always, your best effort is you always say, hey, give us your testimony or tell us what's happening or how you're experiencing this. And it has been really hit or miss for us in terms of how responsive people are. I think there's a digital fatigue in the moment. There's habitual scrolling on social media. So you think folks will engage and tell you, here's what I'm going through or here's what I'm experiencing. So we've had to start with the people in our community and ask them, hey, would you, and people who really aren't known in our community. This is something that we've decided is we really want to focus on telling stories of people in our church who people don't automatically know or haven't automatically seen. And so 2 ways that we're trying to do that. One is through our online services, just really highlight a wide variety of our people to do the elements of our service. So people are like, I don't even know who that person is, but they're a part of my church.
Yeah.
And let that be a bridge to like, oh, why don't I know that person? Or how can I connect with them? And then secondly, have them just share, like write out their experience or, give a little bit of a digital testimony, things like that.
So actually you're finding that the shift to digital has enabled you to highlight the diversity of your church and kind of more of the members rather than just like the same people on stage every single Sunday.
100%.
It's been an equalizing kind of thing almost.
Very much so. And it's been really good because, I think we believe so much in the priesthood of all believers and the opportunity that we have to be people who the kingdom is coming in all of our lives.
Yes.
But you do get in a rut when you're meeting in person with almost over vetting who should be on stage in the sense,
Yeah.
right? Like when people have so many gifts to use and are just waiting to be asked, they're waiting to be commissioned. And so it's been amazing. We've instituted this thing called the hashtag gratitude gap, where we have somebody different every week in our community, share a little like why they're grateful, and encourage people to take 30 seconds in the service and just reach out to somebody in their family, to share online, share on social media, text someone they love, as just a breather from just, information to try to facilitate a transformational practice that we hope is counter to this moment of so much like complaint and frustration and real tragedy. So.
Yeah. So now you said that, are your services pre-recorded or are they live on a Zoom?
Yeah. So yes, wink, wink. Live means we pre-record it. We have a friend, actually, it's fascinating, somebody in our community, when COVID hit, moved back to Tampa, Florida. So we crowdsource all of the different video components, send them to him by Wednesday at 5 p.m. And he does all the sound, production and all the video production, puts it all together, and then sends it back. And then we, stream it through our app and, syndicate it to YouTube and Facebook. And, he's in Florida. Our new person that we hired, Ntabi, she lives in New York City and she's our new communications director. So she does everything for our communications, but from New York. And so we're doing a lot of realizing our community can expand across the country with people that we love and trust and build relationship with and, connect each week. And it doesn't even seem weird. It just seems possible.
That's really interesting. I heard a couple of things in there. One of them was that you guys have kind of stumbled upon or discovered a way to kind of create a community of spiritual discipline or practice with this little gratitude moment.
Yes.
And it's actually happening in a pre-recorded medium. So it's not even have to be a live thing, but you can all practice it together as you experience the service live together.
Yes.
So that's one fascinating thing. There's new spiritual disciplines that are kind of able to emerge in a digital platform, in a community still, and you guys are practicing it together. So that's really cool because it's participatory, not just one way receiving. And it gives people that moment, that kind of sacred moment to reach out to someone. And the second interesting thing is that it sounds like your church is kind of reflecting a little bit of like this like tech world now, where it's like you literally are a distributed workforce. You don't have to all be literally like, this is our neighborhood. Like you have people in Tampa and New York and in Seattle. And so this push has actually caused your organization to also reflect kind of the world that I guess your church inhabits, because I'm guessing a lot of them are young professionals, 100%. Probably Amazon and
100%. Yeah, we were fortunate to serve a ton of young professionals and tech workers and knowledge workers, people who, in one sense, one of the challenges of the moment is a lot of them are leaving our context, right? There's a lot of transition, there's a lot of loss because they're entry level, but in tech, and so one of the things that it's doing is it's preparing our hearts to really see incarnational presence as bigger than we imagined it. So an example is, we really had to ask the question about how do we do communion together as a church in a digital moment. And so we started to do it during our service, and then we realized quickly people aren't doing it like we thought they would during our Sunday gathering. Like, it's wishful thinking for us. We feel better, but people aren't really doing it. And so because all of our small groups that we had to immediately launch, we were in a process of like getting our small groups ready, and then all of a sudden we have like leaders ready, and we're like, you're now leading a Zoom small group. So now those groups take communion together
as a small
over Zoom, and so our leaders are prepared and equipped to do that. But it's just one of those things where I think, to bring up the point of tech workers' capacity, I just think, the grace in the midst of this tragedy is that there's never been a better time to utilize innovation and technology to be able to be the church. And we're just really grateful that we get to do so, and we get to learn new ways and new strategies to do that together.
Yeah, how are you finding that your church kind of gives people in tech that imagination for how their technical gifts can actually advance God's kingdom?
It's a great question. I mean, I would say they're probably more inspiring to us than we are inspiring to them. There's this, the cliche is the ancient future dynamic. We're just trying to really ask them, where are your gifts and where do we need to go? Because there are constant new medium, right? Like, I know youth in our church are already on to whatever's after TikTok.
Yeah.
And they're already, and they're embracing themselves for whatever will happen there. But knowing that, we can really take the lead of our people because they do know more than we do. It's the same thing we try to do with our medical professionals and just ask them, hey, you know better than we do about how we should respond to this COVID crisis. We aren't medical professionals, but what we can be is not the front lines of ministry, but the back lines of ministry, because most of the people who we believe are building the kingdom out in the world, in all of these professional spaces, our job, and we just said, literally our first sermon series in this season was your turn. And the conversation was, it's your turn. And it's our job to empower and equip you for the works of service. Go into the world, because we are now scattered. And so now it's time. We have a new normal upon us. It's time. And I know that's even feels cliche in a sense, but I think with the future of the church and where we're being led by Christ making the most of tragedy, right, is to a time and a place where digital isn't going to just be ancillary or an add-on, but it's just going to be part of our, there's this guy, Brady Shear, he talks about the 167 other hours of the week that we get to do ministry and discipleship through social media and discipleship through technology and discipleship through all of it. And I think we've been going there for a while, but we're just learning how to do that.
Yeah, what do you think, kind of pre-pandemic, were the barriers that the pandemic really kind of tore down to make it possible to have this really, I guess, laity empowering focus where really the ministry belongs to the saints?
Yeah, I think a few things. One, I think complacency, has been a pandemic in the American evangelical church community, meaning we have this habit of coming and receiving and doing so at our own place and space that we choose and the frequency by which we want to take part of it. But I think what's been amazing is that technology, everybody's already opted in, right? Yes. So people aren't coming once every 4 weeks. They're coming, 40 times a day to their social media feed, or, the tech usage has increased, which means we have a responsibility to go and be where the people are. And I think, I think for gatherings together in person as a community, what this moment has accelerated is that we can cut away the things that we wanted to lead our people to a place that was more prayerful and more focused on spiritual practice in their everyday life. And there's just no filter anymore. There's no, I don't know how to say this, there's no barrier to entry because a lot of it's just burned away.
Yeah.
And now all we have left is either living it or not.
Yeah.
And so I think that's huge for the kingdom of God in breaking, because we really can offer very direct courses, for example, on discipleship, right? It's not like, I hope they catch the vision for discipleship by coming to church 20 times and then maybe getting involved. Yeah. It's like, you either come or you don't.
Yeah.
You either participate or you don't. And I think that's a gift to our people's growth.
So it really reduced a lot of the friction.
Tons of friction, tons of unnecessary friction, right? People aren't complaining about the coffee or, very, in some sense, things that matter, but really aren't that important in the big scheme of things. And so we get to kind of, I think, reset for when we hopefully begin to gather again, but in person, but really just say to the church, wherever you're gathering, we have to engage. You have to bring yourself to the table.
Yep. So it's actually causing people to have to show up authentically as who they are in a digital medium. It takes more intentionality because it's not just like, hey, I'm already here, I'll just might as well do this. But at the same time, it gets rid of that friction. So you can just be like, this is what we offer, we're here to serve you, and you can kind of join us or not. It's also interesting that we said earlier about the social media, that people are on it 40 times a day. So from an attention perspective, that's your neighborhood. Like social media is not just marketing, it's actually your neighborhood. Like that's where you show up and that's where people are. So that is another big like shift that like, I guess the pandemic has made it more obvious. Because before it was like clear, like, oh no, this is our neighborhood, like physically this is our neighborhood. But no, wait a minute, people are already there.
Yes, and it's vulnerable because I mean, I believe in the power of the gathering of the saints together physically, that the Holy Spirit does something. Really unique, kind of one of a kind. Yet, I do think, again, if people are going to spend majority of their week online, then how do we find ways to be that there? And it's challenging me as a pastor, it's challenging us as a team to constantly reconsider and think about, okay, you know, how can we occupy these streets, right? These digital streets, like how can we be a part of what God's seemingly, like how do we discern even what God's gonna try to do? Like I remember feeling like this might be the time that God finally redeems the internet. You know, I know it sounds crazy, right? But there's so much brokenness and things online, like wouldn't God do it? That the kingdom would break through every crack and every crevice, including even the internet. You know, like it would be this place where God would make the most of now this fact. And I think that's happened even with, you know, the civil rights movement that's happened in this moment, right? The church can be galvanized online to learn a ton, to act quickly, and to respond to real needs in the world without being like, oh, I have to attend 4 events at church this week in person. It's like, why don't we really hyper-focus, train, equip our people, and send them to do ministry by just really focusing.
It kind of sharpened the mission rather than the tradition of the church, of sustaining the traditions. Now you can just focus on, okay, what's God calling us to do, and let's go do it. You mentioned earlier about digital fatigue, and I know that is probably a new kind of friction, a new kind of barrier, because it does take so much intentionality to show up on a Zoom call compared to just like, oh, I'm just kind of here in this nice space, and oh, I want to talk to that person. You got that, you know, relaxed serendipity and the nice habitat. Like, what are you seeing with that Zoom fatigue? Is it something that is kind of going to diminish people's participation and engagement? And are there ways you're trying to work around that?
Yeah, I mean, it is a very real challenge. Both the Zoom fatigue and even watching a service online. So we've been talking about, if we found on social media that highlighting our people in really organic, natural ways, like what are you going through? What are you experiencing? What are you learning? That perhaps even in our service has to begin to change to be more human and less traditional in the sense of here's our elements of our liturgy. Like what if one of those elements of the liturgy is just a person spotlight? So a church in town that I think did a really great job is they kind of followed somebody to work with a video camera and like observed a day in the life of, right? And I think we're really trying to reconsider, okay, how do we actually, when we meet with people, either digitally or, you know, at a safe social distance, and we hear a testimony of what God is doing, it's really forcing us to very much slow down, record that, and think of all the digital neighbors that we can share that with, right? Because we now have 10 channels that matter more than ever. We have a newsletter, a Facebook, an Instagram, an app. We have, you know, all these different spaces that we can do that. So here's an example. So we have someone who just moved to our church, has never been here in person, is a child psychologist. And he, before he's ever attended anything in person, he literally made a video for our children's pastor to share with all the parents about how to care for your kids during COVID.
Wow.
And so it's like, I watched it last night and I was rejoicing because it was like, he was a part of and leading in our church digitally before he's ever been here, you know? And so I don't know. I mean to say, like with the fatigue element, man, we really have to learn to remain creative when we as leaders are all the more fatigued ourselves, right? It's hard to be creative without margin. It's hard to be creative in approach when you kind of feel like you settled into a new rhythm. But what I'm noting is with the analytics and otherwise, that people, have a cliff that they start to fall off in quantity of time of your gathering. Once you hit the 45-minute or hour mark, they're exhausted and done. And in Zoom, it's actually psychologically fatiguing to try to keep a smile and interact. So how do we lower expectations and yet raise challenge? How do we invite people into a more participatory thing that's not just hey, I'll sit here and look like I'm paying attention, but really drives new ways. And we don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I know that one thing that I've found that's been interesting has a lot of people use Zoom for church, which makes sense. But I've also been using Discord a lot more, which is more of the gaming focused community. Yep. But it was invented initially as just like voice chat. So you're playing a video game and you're kind of like just chatting to each other while you're playing the game together.
Yeah.
And I've found that mixing it up where it's not like a Zoom call where I have to be present and like it's a meeting and I'm trying to do it, but like playing a game together and just like talking. I don't need to see their face. It's like, let's just play this game together and do this, whatever. It actually changes the genre. Because now it's not like we have to get this done. It's actually like, let's just have fun and hang out. Yes. Which is a little bit of that vibe that you kind of can get in a coffee shop when you're just like, let's just hang out and have fun.
Yeah, one of our young professional groups, they have done like digital game nights. And I think it's the similar thing. It's that recreational companionship. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I go on a walk with someone, I'm not staring at them the whole time. Yeah. We're looking and we're taking things in. And that's a really great idea as a way to, I think, engage participation that doesn't just create what is unnatural for the history of humanity, which is to always just talk straightforward at someone across a screen. Yeah. Versus why don't we do something together? Why don't we facilitate something or create something? So we're even trying to ask the question what is our next way of serving the city, and how can we do that in person? How can we serve abroad? How can we serve locally? What does that look like? And so it raises questions for me about ways that we could even do that digitally.
What are some of those ideas that you have?
Yeah, that's a great question. Some that have come to mind are, some safe social distancing, helping dads is a local ministry that we love and are passionate about in Seattle. It helps reconnect fathers to their kids. And they've, normally had a small group on Wednesdays, and then they would navigate fathers into how to take care of child support and otherwise. We thought about how do we go and serve in person? Well, the question there is going to be how do you, their ministry similarly was built in in-person reality. Yep. And so is there any ways that we can support their work as maybe similarly outsourced, digital office assistants, people who can help to run their nonprofit, to ways that they would allow us to, are there ways that we can aid in their processes digitally? Other ones, we've just been asking questions about, international efforts. One is World Vision has this program called Chosen, where they would allow folks, instead of, people in the States choosing a sponsor family to support, we've been raising the question about, a church in Long Beach, California called Garden Church. My friend Darren pastors, they flipped it where the people in the community chose the sponsor family that they wanted. And so it's interesting to think about, I've been really passionate about what kind of way could we do that? But then the question would be, that would obviously be more digital than anything. And so what would that look like? Just asking questions about humanitarian aid needs with COVID still. I think there's a fatigue around we all helped a ton in the beginning and people aren't asking for help as much. Yep. So how do we find the information even for where to help locally? Yeah. We're looking ahead to the fall with our coat lunch. How do we, do we do that for our homeless and houseless neighbors? Well, yes, we always have, but how do we do that? And what does that look like? How do we partner with the collective? Yeah. In a socially distant way, or, so I don't know. I mean, we've thought a lot about Beirut and what happened there, in Yemen, and just places in the world that have needs, but how do we meet those needs in a digital moment?
Mm-hmm. And how do you kind of create the connection and significance? Because even in the past, you could give money always, yes, but it could often feel perfunctory. It's more like, oh, I just feel like I want to help them, okay, and that's kind of it.
Yes.
One thing that was interesting was that you mentioned that child psychologist who created that video with his gifts, or I assume it's a he, it could have been she, and to serve your community of his own initiative. And you mentioned also with that as a pastor, you can also feel so tired, it's hard to have the creativity in the margin. What does that collaboration look like where really more and more of the saints can really be showcased with their gifts to serve others, right? Where the creativity and the margin can come from the saints and not just the person in the clergy role.
Yes, it looks like necessity, in my opinion, because one, like, there are so many incredible gifts that Christ has brought to the church, but I think historically we've said, hey, can you use those gifts to run church activities? Instead of the church being a platform, and I know you've talked about this in the past in one of your podcasts I heard, just the element of like, what if we could be like an app, or like a Facebook, or like, you know, some sort of means where it's really is about not just reaching the people that I feel called to reach as a pastor, but who do you feel called to reach, and what influence do you have in your spheres and your spaces, so that we could really resource that. And so we've even been thinking about, like, you know, grants, for example, to resource projects that are inspired by the needs and passions of the people in our community. You know, and as those arise, I mean, I think it's interesting, because what even brought that video to the surface with this new person in our church was we realized parents are like having to teach their kids at home. So when we would send out digital kids curriculum, they weren't going to use it because they already have to do that all week to parent their kids for the school. They're finally thankful to have a summer vacation. And even though we had this great curriculum on justice and ministry in that way, parents weren't using it. And so at that point, it's like, what are we doing? And so we just started going, okay, why don't we just try a different approach? And this emerged as a natural creative idea because the necessity was there to go, this isn't working for us to just try to keep doing what we've always done in the context of digital. We have to really go, okay, this moment is different, what we're doing is different, so we have to do something different.
I love that experimentation, and also like the honesty of like, you know what, we put a lot of work into this curriculum, but nobody's using it, so we got to change it up.
It's brutal, and you can just kind of keep doing it because it's in some sense easier.
It's what you know.
Yeah, and you're like, well, it's what we're supposed to do, and it's like, it's really not helpful.
Yeah, you know, one thing that this is like kind of random, but I know that a lot of young people are like playing games and everything like that. They're really comfortable. They're digital natives, we call that. But very rarely do I see them in like my church service or in other online church services. I'm like, you know, this is the time when they can actually step up and lead and like kind of, they can show us their world, you know, in a sense, like, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. Like, you know, you guys don't get TikTok, I'll show you or whatever. And like make that a part of that world. Because then it's not so much like we have the answers, we're gonna give it to you. It's like you said, wait a minute, you know this better than we do. Come share with us, be authentic and share that with us. And like, we're gonna be your community around that and your witness and support you in being the minister in that digital neighborhood. Because if you as a pastor feel like you had to figure it out, all of it, that's exhausting. That is like,
And impossible. Yeah, I mean, I really hope that the invitation is clear enough for folks to use their spaces and spheres. You know, that's part of one of the blessings of being a small church that's figuring itself out and where we're going, where we're headed. You know, but even what's come to our attention is like we have a mission, and it's, you know, we state it every Sunday in our gatherings, but our people still need to figure out, like, need to know how they can operationalize that. And for us to build into that, one of those key things is that it happens, you know, in their own life and in their own way, and that we resource that. And so, yes, we are forever in the learning curve of this, and you know, in many ways, it's not our turn as pastors. It's really the turn of the church. So.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tyler, for joining me for this.
Thanks for
really
having
great
me.
conversation.
I'm glad to be a part of it.
I'd also like to thank the MJ Murdoch Charitable Trust for making this project possible. If you would like resources to help your church with digital transformation, you can go to cdx.theotech.org and join the conversation there. Thank you.